This graph demonstrates the effects of demand pull inflation on the model. Demand pull inflation occurs when an increase in aggregate demand pulls up the price level. Since the demand pull inflation causes the aggregate demand curve to shift to the right, it causes the price level to increase, which expands output to a higher level. Since the economy is now producing above the potential output, inputs are in high demand, which in the long run causes their prices to also adjust upwards. This therefore causes the short-run aggregate supply curve to shift upwards, moving equilibrium back to the long-run aggregate supply curve. In the short run, demand pull inflation increases both the price level and the real output. But in the long run, only the price level will increase, as output will always return to the full employment level. Under cost push inflation, factors have arisen that have increased the cost of production at each level of production, causing the short-run aggregate supply curve to shift upwards and increase the price level. Cost push inflation typically causes inflationary pressures on the economy, and government usually will move to counter the negative effects by using fiscal and monetary policy to increase aggregate demand. This only ends up moving the prices even higher as the economy seeks to return to the natural full employment level of output. If the government does not take action, the economy will eventually return on its own to the natural level, but the process will be painful as widespread business failures, layoffs, and plant closures usually follow the process. So the government ends up between a rock and a hard place. Do nothing and deal with an extended recession, or take action and end up with higher inflation. The most challenging issue to deal with is the effect of recession on the model. In a recession, aggregate demand declines and shifts left, which reduces prices. The economy will be producing less, so the demand for inputs will be low. Eventually, nominal wages will drop. Once the wages fall, aggregate supply will decrease, which will decrease prices further. We are back at the long-run equilibrium of full employment, but at a much lower price level. In the real world, inflation is a constant. Things cost more today than 100 years ago or even 10 years ago. How can the economy still achieve a reasonable rate of growth if this happens? The answer is that aggregate demand or the long-run aggregate supply curve shifts in an ongoing process. Economic growth is illustrated by either an outward shift in the production possibilities curve or a rightward shift in the long-run aggregate supply curve. As the curves shift, they will lead to price increases at a new equilibrium level. Prices very rarely decrease in the long run. Why not? The Federal Reserve will increase the money supply to create rightward shifts in the aggregate demand curve. The whole key to managing inflation is for the Fed to use monetary policy to shift the aggregate demand curve to the right faster than the supply factors of economic growth shift the long-run aggregate supply curve to the right. An economy can withstand mild inflation as long as it is occurring at a slow pace. It is the sudden shifts in the curve that cause economic chaos.